Okay, let's get this done. We're looking at chapter 8. I was about to say chapter 4, enhancing performance. So we looked at that back in chapter 4 when we looked at the muscular system. And now we're looking at the cardiovascular system. So everyone wants to be the best, especially athletes. I mean, they get paid to, compete. They win gold medals. They go to Olympics, so on and so forth. So, they want to be the best. And some of them spend their whole lives training and trying to achieve that. And it takes them their whole career because they do it the right and the legal way. So chapter 4, we looked at the shortcuts that people take when it comes to like enhancing the muscular system. So this one, like I said, we are going to look at the cardiovascular system. And this PowerPoint is going to be short and sweet. So it shouldn't take too much of your time, hopefully. So the legal and illegal methods, this is what we're going to look at. We're going to look at altitude training and hypoxic training. If you don't know what hypoxic training is, you will see shortly. We're also going to cover the illegal methods, EPO, blood doping, and beta blockers. So let's get into it. So altitude training. It has been around for many years, and it's only sort of in recent times that it's become more popular. You tend to hear a lot of the AFL clubs taking their their off season or their pre-season trips and going to places like Arizona and basically places that have higher altitudes than where we live, so obviously up in the mountains. You can see here in the little chart here that I've taken from your textbook, these are, I guess, the amount of breathable oxygen at the varying levels, and how it's sort of categorized in terms of that. So basically, altitude training in a nutshell, and it also kind of relates to hypoxic training as well. At higher altitudes, we know that there is significantly less oxygen. So your body has to work harder to supply the oxygen required during just living. Okay, because of this lack of O2, you tend to see, and this is going back to that oxygen debt and deficit and that sort of stuff, we tend to see quite a large oxygen deficit, and as a response, the body produces more and more red blood cells to extract, to carry what little oxygen there is available around to the working muscles. So the end result, and usually it's maybe 3-4 weeks, the end result of the training is more red blood cells, which obviously means more oxygen carrying ability, and then at sea level you have better performances because you have that increased level, the increased ability to process and to supply the working muscles with oxygen. So what I want you to do is I want you to read the real world application, which looks at, I think it was the Collingwood Football Club. So if you're any Collingwood fans, I'm not, I couldn't care less. But no, it's definitely worth the read. So complete those questions as well, and then complete the chapter check questions. So hypoxic basically means low levels of oxygen within the tissues and cells of the body. Okay, so it's very similar in nature to altitude training. The only difference is, I mean, you can see there, the guys are hooked up with masks, and the idea behind it is that it levels the playing field for everyone, because not everyone can afford to fly the whole team up to Whoop Whoop, up into the mountains. This is sort of a more achievable method of training for all the clubs. So benefits, it increases your VO2 max, and these are just some of them, because you have more oxygen carrying ability within the body. You also have a decreased heart rate and blood pressure because of the aerobic benefits. So your heart becomes more efficient, and you also have a reduced feeling of fatigue. The illegal ones, and we have Lance, and I mean, I shouldn't really just pick on Lance. There are many, many, many other people who, throughout history, have been, caught cheating to achieve what they have done. And in some instances, it has cost them quite dearly. In Lance's instance, it did cost him. He was stripped of all his Tour de France wins, and lost millions and millions in sponsorships and that sort of thing. So EPO is a naturally occurring hormone in the body, and it's produced in the kidneys, and it's responsible for regulating the production of the red blood cells. So usually this hormone is used to treat medical conditions, people suffering from anemia, kidney diseases, and some cancers. Okay, but it has health risks associated with it in the sense that it thickens the blood, which makes the heart work harder to pump the same amount of blood. And then our mate Lance, he did a variety of different blood doping over the years. And essentially, this is a very, very basic, I guess, definition of what blood doping is, but it's artificially boosting the blood cells in the body, and it's usually done by taking blood out, storing it for a period, and the body's natural response is to fill up the tank, if you will, reproduce more red blood cells, reproduce more blood to fill up what was taken out, and then just prior to the event, it's injected back into the body. So as a result, there's more hemoglobin, which means there's more oxygen to the working muscles. Okay, but there are risks associated with that as well. Things like stroke, infections, blood-borne diseases. So especially the infections and blood-borne diseases, because it's injecting something into you, so it's using a needle. So things like possibly HIV, hepatitis, those sort of diseases, illnesses. There is one more thing which I didn't cover actually. Beta blockers. In a nutshell, beta blockers, what they are responsible for doing is slowing the heart rate down. So people that require, steady hands, archers, shooters, those sort of people can take the shot in between those heartbeats. So it slows it right down to make it a lot easier for them to take the shot, because it reduces the tremors, and that is beta blockers in a nutshell. All right, end of the chapter. That was a really quick chapter. I want you to complete the chapter check questions, the chapter review questions, and submit it on Teams. I will also put in a link into the Teams channel if you're interested. If you've got a spare, I think it's about hour and a half. It is the complete interview for Lance Armstrong, the interview that he did with Oprah Winfrey just after he was found guilty. Definitely worth a watch. If you've got any questions, shoot me a message. See you soon.